Police Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We're broadcasting from Durban, South Africa, in our week-long exclusive at the United Nations Climate Change Conference. Talks have entered what is supposed to be their last official day, but without an agreement, negotiations are expected to possibly extend into Saturday. The talks are now focused on a European Union-sponsored roadmap that calls for a new climate treaty to be negotiated by 2015 to impose binding cuts on the world's biggest emitters of greenhouse gases. Such a deal would not likely go into effect until 2020. The EU plan has received support from key blocs at the talks, including a coalition of small island nations and a grouping of the world's least developed countries. But several of the world's largest polluters, including the United States, China, and India, have refused to back the deal. There's also no agreement on how to establish a green climate fund and whether it should be run in part by the World Bank. Last night, the U.S. State Department took the unusual step of issuing a clarification to its position on the so-called EU roadmap to make clear that the United States does not yet support a legally binding deal to cut emissions. Earlier today, Connie Hedegaard, the European Commissioner for Climate Action, held a news conference and answered questions about the EU deal and the opposition to it from the world's largest polluters.
Peter Fabricius from independent newspapers. Yesterday, the chief U.S. negotiator, Todd Stern, in his press briefing first said that he supported the roadmap, and then later last night the State Department issued a statement clarifying that to say he did not mean legally binding, he meant other aspects of the EU. I mean, could you just give us some sense of where you think US stands, and also who the other holdouts are that haven't come aboard?
As I indicated, I think it's very interesting that half of the basic group has now said that they are in favor not only of a legally binding deal, but the key point there is whether that also goes for their own commitments, South Africa and Brazil. Then I think that I've also indicated where two other major challenges are. And yes, I also saw this correction from the State Department. I always thought that the United States were in favor of a legally binding deal, provided that others were also legally bound. So in that sense, you wrote, all of you, very much about the Chinese press conference when they were also sort of articulating things in that direction, that the world should have a legally binding deal. I think also press releases were issued. But again, the discussion is, should it also go for themselves? And that is sort of the old game we are still in. That's the same parties we are still waiting for. We sat, as I said, in a small group of 28 ministers appointed by the respective regional groups, a very representative group, until 4 o'clock or a bit more this morning, and try to find solutions to that, and that process will continue here. I'm not quite sure when the presidency will call the meeting again.
Connie Hedegaard, the European Commissioner for Climate Action. Minutes after Hedegaard spoke, I spotted the two top U.S. climate negotiators, Todd Stern and Jonathan Pershing, and attempted to speak to them. Could we get State Department clarification on the roadmap, the EU roadmap? What we're trying to do is ask the chief U.S. climate negotiator, Todd Stern, about his statement yesterday that the U.S. supports the EU roadmap, the European Union roadmap, because after he said that last night, the State Department issued a clarification point saying the U.S. may support the EU roadmap, but not the legal aspects of it, which is the only meaningful aspects of it. A number